My name is Hollis Quinn. The 50th anniversary of the family legacy was held in the very house that bears my name. The house I paid to repair after the storm years ago. And yet, when I arrived, they called me the logistics assistant. No one greeted me by name. No one said thank you. Then, in front of over 60 familiar faces, my sister Delaney stood up, eyes glistening. "We officially take over the ancestral home," I simply asked, calmly. "This house is under my ownership." My father said nothing. He walked over and slapped me. Applause broke out, not in protest, but in approval. Have you ever been erased from the very story you helped build? Leave a comment if you know that feeling. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear what happens next, because you won't believe what came after. I left the party in silence, but the memory wouldn't leave me. Driving down the Red Leaf Road back to the cabin, I found myself flashing back to when I was 23. That was when I received an invitation to a historic architecture fellowship in Chicago. A dream since college. I was about to leave this town to begin a new chapter with my first design carrying my name. But then my mother, Corinne, collapsed the morning I was supposed to submit my plane ticket and stage kidney failure. I postponed the trip, then canceled it altogether. No one asked me to, but everyone assumed it was the right thing to do. My father, Marshall, owned a small woodworking shop on the edge of town. While Mom was in the hospital, he said, "Help me run the store for a bit. You're good with the paperwork." That bit lasted 6 years. 6 years with no weekends, no holidays. I handled orders, fixed faulty contracts, called repairmen, and even ran payroll when Dad lost track of the books. I used to joke I was the unpaid CFO. No one laughed. And Delaney, my sister, she disappeared after failing to win a scholarship. Vanished without notice. No one knew where she was for 4 months until she posted a picture bartending in Portland. Mom cried in silence. Dad called her the lost child. Delaney returned during the second Thanksgiving I was running the store. She walked in like nothing had happened, holding a teaching certificate from a short-term training program and an offer to teach middle school history. Mom immediately threw a welcome party. Dad stood at the dinner table and said, "My daughter has returned, and this time to teach the next generation." And me? I was washing dishes in the kitchen. No one mentioned the Chicago Fellowship. No one asked if I still wanted to go. Maybe, in their eyes, I was settled. In 2015, a major storm hit the town. A tree tore through the roof of my parents' old house. The insurance covered only part of the cost. Marshall sat with his head in his hands, then looked at me and said, "Can you take out a mortgage in your name? You've got a better interest rate." I nodded. No hesitation. It was the family home, I told myself. I never told anyone it took me 6 months to pay off the first installment. That I had to cancel plans to open an architecture office in Montpelier to keep the cash flow steady. I never said a word they never asked. In the years that followed, while I took Mom to dialysis 3 times a week, drove Dad to his cardiology appointments, cooked, washed the car, fixed the plumbing, I was always called one thing: the reliable helper. I once heard my mother tell a church acquaintance, "Hollis isn't any trouble. She's always there when you need her." Dad would chuckle. "She doesn't have a family of her own, so she's always around." Never once a daughter we're proud of. I used to wonder, if I had children, if I had a home of my own, would they see me differently? But that's not a fair question, to myself. Because a person's worth should never be measured by the number of chairs around a dinner table. One time, I asked Delaney, when it was just the two of us wrapping Christmas gifts, "Do you remember when you came back and Mom made 2 full batches of pumpkin pie?" "That's my favorite, but she's never made it for me." Delaney shrugged. "Maybe I needed more taking care of than you did." They never called it sacrifice. They called it convenience. And Delaney? Every little thing she did was treated like a new chapter in the Quinn family history. Tonight's party was simply the peak of a lifetime of being blurred out. And that slap? It wasn't surprising. It was the first time they wrote on my face what they'd always believed in their heads. I didn't belong to this legacy because I didn't produce the next heir. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't born to preserve their tradition. I lived to write a different one. And from that moment, I was no longer willing to be there. I drove back to the cabin in silence. The quiet mountain road I used to love now seemed to tighten around my chest. Each curve heavier, each hill dragging at the steering wheel. Finn, my loyal old dog, lay still in the back seat. No barking, no movement, as if he too sensed something inside me had snapped. 4 hours had. When I stepped inside, everything was exactly where I left it. The old leather chair by the fireplace, the warm scent of pine wood, the lamp I hung myself still tilted a bit to the left. I hadn't fixed it yet. I placed the keys on the table, took off my shoes, and walked to my desk as I always did. The laptop lit up, waiting. I checked email almost by reflex, and that's when I saw the subject line that sent a chill through my blood. Notice of ownership transfer pending confirmation. The sender was a registered notary address, professionally formatted. I clicked the email, palms cold. Oh no. We have received a request to transfer ownership of the property located at 47 Maple Grove Road, Vermont, from Mrs. Hollis Quinn to Mrs. Delaney Brooks. Please confirm the information before the 14th of this month to complete the process. Attached was a PDF of the signed contract, with a signature eerily similar to mine. But it wasn't mine. I pulled the screen closer, zoomed in on each stroke. I have never written a Q with that kind of swirl. I never write dates in the month/day/year format. I always list the day first. You can forge handwriting, but you can't forge habit. I stood up, chest weighted like stone. That old feeling came back, the one I knew too well from years of caregiving. The moment when you realize something has already happened, but you haven't had time to scream yet. Another ping. A second email. No sender name, no greeting line. Only one sentence. They're planning to push you out. This time they hired a notary. I've read it again and again. No extra info, no signature, no timestamp, just a warning, cold as night wind through the trees. I sat down, heart pounding. My hands trembled over the keyboard, but I was clear enough to open the personal property folder I had maintained for years. I found the original mortgage file, the one I signed 8 years ago when I'd borrowed to fix my parents' house. I compared every line, my name, the parcel ID, the clause stating sole ownership, no joint party listed. Then came a text from Mrs. Edith, the neighbor across from my parents' home. She rarely speaks, but notices everything like it's a survival skill in small-town life. Alice, they changed the locks yesterday. A man in a gray suit carrying legal papers came with Delaney and her husband. I saw them go into the house that afternoon. I stared at the screen, the words sliding past before they could stick. Part of me wanted to think, maybe they're trying to protect the house. Another part hoped, maybe it's a misunderstanding. But then the party flashed through my mind again. The slow clap from Delaney, Mom's resigned nod, and Dad's slap. No. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a plan. And I was never invited to be part of it. I turned back to the desk, opened the security camera feed at the cabin. I checked the access logs. Still untouched. But now I worried the house on Maple Grove was no longer safely mine. I checked my bank account, the past notarized records, every fragment of memory I had stored in gray folders on the external drive. Something was moving beneath the surface, and I had been asleep for too long. Part of me wanted to scream, call someone, confront them, but another part, the one that had survived all the silent erasures, whispered, "Don't react, document. Document every footprint they've left across my life." I opened a new document and titled it Quinn Legacy, Reacid, and I started writing. Every timeline, every dollar I'd transferred, Every piece of paperwork I had. Every time Delaney said, "I'm borrowing a little, you've got plenty." Every time my parents said, "You don't have kids, why do you need so much anyway?" I don't know how long I stayed like that. I only remember that when I finally got up, my back ached. Finn looked up at me, tilting his head as if he too sensed something had shifted. I made coffee close to midnight, hands still slightly trembling as I poured the boiling water into the filter. The small cabin kitchen glowed with warm yellow light, but it didn't soften the rush of thoughts in my head. On the table, the laptop remained open. The house transfer document, from me to Delaney, sat there like a cruel confirmation that everything I'd ever given was now being used as a weapon against me. I checked the time. Nearly 11 p.m., then I picked up my phone. Selected a familiar name I'd hesitated to call for the past 2 years. Mira Calderon. We had studied together at Middlebury. Mira was the kind of person with a memory sharp as a blade, and a voice that stayed calm even in chaos. After graduation, she moved to Boston to work for a civil law firm, then returned to Vermont a few years ago to care for her ailing father. I'd never asked Mira for personal help before, but this time I had no choice. The call rang barely 3 times. "Hollis?" Mira answered, surprised. "It's late. Everything okay?" "I need help. Legal help. Specifically, a property transfer I never signed off on." A short silence. Then Mira's voice dropped lower. "You're at the cabin?" "Yeah. And I think they're trying to take it too." I told her everything. From the legacy celebration, the slap, the anonymous warning email, to the forged document with my signature. Mira didn't ask much. She listened like someone assembling a legal framework in her head. When I finished, she only asked, "Do you have the original loan documents, home renovation contracts, and cabin purchase papers?" "Yes, all scanned, plus hard copies." "Good. First step is establishing clear ownership, legally, both for the house and the cabin. Then we check if anyone's opened accounts, using your or your mother's name." As I suddenly thought of my mom, Corinne. For the past 2 years, she'd been forgetful. At first, it was small, misplacing her wallet, forgetting to turn off the stove. Then she couldn't recall our family doctor's name. Got lost walking back from the store. I had suggested a neurological exam, but Dad waved it off. "Your mom's tired. Happens with age." Mira's voice brought me back. "I need you to grant me temporary power of attorney to access your mother's financial records. If they're putting things under her name to legitimize transfers, we can flag elder financial abuse." "I agree. Do whatever it takes to keep everything from disappearing." Mira sent me a link to sign an emergency POA online. I did it right away. My hands weren't trembling anymore, only a chill running deep in my spine. 3 days later, Mira called again. Her voice was low and direct. "I found 2 bank accounts opened under your mom's name in the last 18 months. One with Greenlight Credit Union, one with a local community bank. My mom doesn't know how to use banking apps." "I know. Worse. Both accounts have electronic signatures, created from your parents' home IP address." "Any notable transactions?" "Yes. The Greenlight account received a $15,000 wire transfer from a construction company called Brookwood Restoration, registered to Gavin Brooks, Delaney's husband. They're laundering money through my mom's name." Mira sighed. "Too early to say. But the transaction lines up with the full renovation of your parents' house last year. New walls, new roof, modern heating system. And your cabin. It was also flagged last month for a reassessment of ownership by an unidentified party." I clenched the phone. "Who filed that request?" "Name listed was Hollis Quinn, but the signature doesn't match. And the submission ID traces back to the same Wi-Fi that submitted the original house transfer." This time I had no words. After a beat, Mira's voice softened. "I'll draft a warning to both banks. Temporarily freeze any transactions linked to your mom's assets. Then we'll file a report with Adult Protective Services. There's enough here to warrant a financial abuse investigation." Exhaled, Not with relief, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't alone. Thank you, Mira. I didn't know they'd go this far. Alice. Mira paused, then said gently, but firmly, I don't think they're just trying to push you out. I think they're trying to rewrite your role. Like you were never part of this family at all. They didn't need me to remember. They only needed me gone when it suited them. But this time, I won't disappear like they want me to. The next morning, I spent hours in the small workroom at the back of the cabin, once my design studio, now buried in stacks of documents, hard drives, and old paper boxes from the years I still believed kindness would be remembered. Morning light filtered through the dusty window pane. Finn lay at my feet, tail thumping gently on the floor, reminding me I wasn't truly alone. I opened my computer, pulled up a chair, and typed a new file name. Quinn Legacy Facts. I started with the earliest items. April 13th, 2014. Red, $3,200. Delaney Brooks. Spring Teacher Certification Tuition, email subject. Hollis, I can't get a loan anymore. Just treat it like I'll pay you back, okay? I remember that day clearly. I was having dinner in my car when I got Delaney's email. Chicken sandwich, rain sliding down the windshield. I wired the money through the app without a second thought. No one else in the family knew. I kept scrolling through my bank statements. August 26th, 2015. Monday, 4/25th, $9,450. Payment to Northridge Roofing, LLC. Full roof replacement for my parents' house after the summer storm. I was the one who took out the new mortgage. The receipt's still there, clipped into a file labeled Rebuild Plan in my black ink. I opened a drawer and pulled out a gray file box. Inside were scribbled memos, yellowed post-it notes with frayed edges. Call insurance to follow up on reimbursement. Mom forgot if she filed. Delaney asked for another $500, said she needed a new laptop for her daughter. I snapped pictures of every scrap, every line of ink, even the ones with no legal value, because they held the truth. By 10 a.m., I had over 20 entries documented. I paused to refill my coffee, then reopened an old email from 2019. Subject, I'll pay you back, I promise. From Delaney Brooks. Body, please lend me one more time. Henry fell, ER bills are piling up. I swear I'll pay by June. June came and went, no response. I let it go, like I always did. I pulled up a photo of Delaney and Mom in the kitchen after the roof was finished, taken it from behind them. Sunlight pouring through the window. Mom had said, Ember, your sister's accomplished so much, hasn't she? I didn't respond back then, but I saved the photo. Now I renamed the file, After Hollis Paid for the Roof. Ping. Text from Mira. Another transaction in your mom's records, wired from her new account to Gavin's company. Looks like a deposit for log cabin project. I called Mira immediately. Are you sure? I asked, gripping the coffee mug till the heat stung. Positive. The transfer came from an account under Corinne Quinn's name. Same day Gavin posted a story about his company expanding investments in the Eastern Mountain region. My mother can no longer remember what shirt she's wearing, what she's saying, or to whom. And yet they used her name like a shield to move money, to authorize deals, to erase the last bit of clarity I had. Mira's voice came softly through the phone. I've already spoken with someone at Adult Protective Services. You have enough to request a full investigation. Do it for me. Send me whatever papers I need to sign. Will do. And Hollis? Mira hesitated. I know you once believed silence was noble. But sometimes, silence is exactly what they count on. I looked around the cabin, once my refuge. Pine walls, embroidered curtains, the floor creaking under Finn's paws. Everything here was handpicked by me, placed by me. I returned to the desk and saved the file with a new title in all caps. Quinn Legacy Facts. unrecorded cash flow. I backed it up in 3 places: my laptop, an external drive, and the encrypted cloud account Mira set up for me. I wouldn't let them bury this again. I don't know when the video was uploaded. I only remember that morning, while sweeping leaves off the cabin porch, my phone buzzed non-stop, like something was trying to drag me back into a world I'd escaped. The first message was from Mira. "Have you seen the video?" I frowned and tapped the screen. It was a Reddit post. Headline in bold caps: "Is this the family legacy they're so proud of?" I wasn't ready. The video opened mid-party, glasses clinking, kids laughing. Then Delaney's voice, loud and clear. "Since Hollis doesn't have children, we thought it would be lovely if the cabin became part of the Quinn legacy." I found myself stepping forward, still holding a glass of untouched water. My face was blank. No tension, no anger, just the emptiness of someone far too used to being pushed out of their own life. And then, my father's voice. "You don't have a family. You don't need it." Then came the slap. The sound cracked, sharp and dry, like bamboo hitting tile. My face turned to the side, eyes wide open, not from shock, but from clarity. I didn't stumble. I didn't weep. I remained still, clutching the glass like it was the only thing holding me together. And then, the scariest part happened. Not the slap, but the applause. One person started, then another, then a scattered wave of people around the dinner table clapped in unison. It only lasted a few seconds, but on screen, it felt like a ritual punishment everyone had silently agreed to. The video ended with an image of Delaney. She remained poised, hands clapping in rhythm, her slight smile like someone enjoying a symphony or an inspiring speech. I closed the video, breathed slowly. The hashtag Quinn Legacy cover-up was spreading fast. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Reddit. Users were sharing the clip, commenting, judging. Someone wrote, "I've never seen anyone take a slap at a party and still stand like that. She deserves respect." Another said, "Delaney clapping after the slap? Unforgivable." The podcast Family Ethics immediately posted a short segment. Hollis Quinn? The daughter who once saved the family home? Now stripped of everything because she has no children. Mira called back that afternoon. "This has gone beyond the neighborhood now, Hollis. A local station picked up the story." I didn't share that video. "You didn't have to. Someone at the party did. And justice this time didn't come from the courtroom. It came from a waiter's camera." That night, I opened my laptop intending to work, but saw a live stream pop up on Delaney's page. Title: "The Truth Behind the Distortion." I clicked play. The screen showed Delaney in a carefully staged living room. Warm lighting, scented candles, neatly stacked books behind her. Her makeup was subtle, hair softly curled like she was about to tell a heartfelt story. "I know there's been a lot of talk about my family lately," she began, voice trembling with calculated emotion. "We never meant to hurt Hollis. She's always been the sister I admired." I tilted my head. Admired? But every family has conflict. Edited clips don't show the whole truth. My father's hot-tempered. Hollis understands. My vision blurred, not from tears, but from the cold detachment in her voice. As if that slap was nothing. As if I had volunteered to offer my cheek in a reenactment of their so-called legacy. In the comments, viewers began quoting financial articles, posting receipts, and, most notably, sharing excerpts from Quinn Legacy Facts, which had now been leaked publicly by an anonymous user. One comment read, "Delaney received $3,200 from Hollis in 2014 for tuition. There's proof." Another, "Her mom was financially exploited. The bank statements are right there. Stop lying." The live stream began to quiet. She kept speaking, but her expression froze. Delaney was seeing the comments pour in like a rising tide. The harder she clung to her image of the loyal daughter, the clearer it became that she was the one orchestrating the cover-up. Someone left a final comment before I closed the screen. Not having children doesn't mean you have no value, and no one deserves applause after being hurt. They used to control the narrative through dinners, speeches, and choreographed applause. But truth? Sometimes all it takes is a video. A slap. A look that doesn't bow. I said nothing more. I saved everything, as if I were the last person holding the original manuscript of a memoir someone else tried to rewrite, line by line. I got a call from Mira on a Monday morning, while brewing peppermint tea and sorting through the stack of papers on my desk. Her tone was steady as always, but this time there was something compressed behind each word. Alice, the State Attorney General's office has taken up the case. I tightened my grip on the porcelain mug, staying silent to listen clearly. Mira continued. They're launching a formal investigation into financial abuse involving the accounts under Corinne Quinn's name. Specifically, the two opened last year, both operated from devices that didn't belong to her. Mira sent me a PDF by email right after. Title: Official Notice of Investigation, Office of the Attorney General, Vermont. Included was the same document she had sent to 3 other places: the Department of Revenue, the Notary Board, and the State Real Estate Oversight Committee. I've submitted the full file on the cabin, including the forged transfer papers and your signature comparison. The tax office replied faster than I expected, Mira said. I could hear her typing in the background, probably working from her law office, paperwork spread across her desk, the desk lamp always on. By 6 a.m., the Laney's tax filing last year listed your cabin as a property, to be transferred under family agreement. I've excerpted that original file and attached financial records proving your legal ownership, from the purchase date to the mortgage contract. I pressed my lips together. She's bold, Mira replied gently. Bold, or she thought you'd never speak. That afternoon, I was trimming the heather bushes by the fence when my phone buzzed with a new email. Subject line hit me square. Temporary suspension, Attorney Spencer Hall. Spencer Hall. The name I'd seen on the papers Delaney submitted with her so-called internal agreement. A private attorney who had represented her in estate procedures involving familial ties. The letter read, due to allegations involving forged signatures and failure to verify client capacity, Spencer Hall is temporarily suspended from practicing civil law pending investigation. I read it 3 times, then sat on the cabin steps. The air was cool, a light breeze rustling through the edge of the forest. Finn rested his chin by my feet, eyes half closed but ears alert, always more aware than he let on. What made me quiet wasn't the suspension. It was the feeling that people were finally beginning to see them clearly. Mira texted again. Gavin Brooks has also been summoned by federal investigators. There's evidence he received funds from something called the Quinn Legacy Community Fund, a group that's never been legally registered. I didn't recall ever hearing that fund name, but Mira did. She sent me a screenshot from social media, a post Delaney made a few months back, bragging about a community fundraising initiative to honor the Quinn family's legacy. In the photo, Gavin stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, beaming like some up-and-coming philanthropist. Mira's note under the photo: the recipient account is linked to a sub-account opened under your mother's name. I took a deep breath. It felt like standing over a freshly opened pit. The scent of betrayal seeping from every document, every signature, every dinner I had once shared with them. Mira called again that evening, after getting an update from the independent audit team assigned by the Attorney General's office. The largest transaction was $27,000 from your mother's account to Brooks's company, labeled Air Property Renovation. No contract attached. And my cabin is part of that Air property, according to their narrative. But legally, your cabin is private property, purchased with separate funds, completely excluded from communal assets. I asked softly, is there a chance they'll have to return it? If it's deemed misappropriated assets, yes. If forgery and abuse are proven, definitely. But most importantly, your documentation laid the foundation for this entire investigation to begin. I closed my laptop, resting my hand on the Quinn Legacy Facts file like it was the cold surface of the truth itself. I wasn't at the courthouse the day the ruling was announced, but Mira was. She called me the moment she stepped outside, the sound of traffic and early spring wind mixing in the line. "It's done, Hollis. The court approved everything. The cabin and the main house are officially your private property. No further disputes." I gripped the phone gently, as if letting go would send the whole story spiraling back to where it started. But no. I had held it steady far too long for the wind to take it now. Mira continued, her voice not grand, just steady as always when delivering something important. "The judge wrote clearly, there is no evidence that the property was ever designated as part of any family trust, and using the term family does not override legal ownership. Thank you. Not for this, but for believing me when I first started to speak." "No? I believed you before you even thought you needed to be believed." That day, I was alone in the cabin. I pulled the old wooden trunk down from the attic, opened it to layers of wrapping paper, handwritten letters, old photos. In the middle, I found the embroidered cloth my mother gave me when I was 17, the year I said I wanted to study architecture. "Back then," she said, "small day when you have your own home, put this on the dining table. It'll make it feel familiar. Leave it like a keepsake." But now, it was among the items Delaney once waved in front of a live stream camera, calling them proof of love, as if we were still a close-knit family. I wrapped the cloth carefully. No tape, no label, just a small note. "This is a memory, not an obligation." I mailed the parcel to the nursing home where my mother now lives, with no return address. I'm not sure if she's still lucid enough to read it, or if anyone will help her open it, or just leave it forgotten in some storage room. All I know is, it's no longer mine to carry. That night, I opened my email. Even though I was prepared, my heart still raced when I saw a message from the family's new attorney. A 3-page document, written by a name I didn't recognize, probably the person who replaced Spencer Hall after his suspension. The tone was familiar, circling around words like tradition, moral responsibility, final wishes of the parents. At the end of the letter, they suggested I reconsider becoming my mother's legal guardian, citing that I was the most financially stable and emotionally fit child. I didn't reply right away. I let the message sit in my inbox until the next day. Then I wrote a letter, by hand. It wasn't long. Only 2 paragraphs. "I am the daughter of Corinne Quinn. I once cared for her, loved her, gave up my youth to keep this family from falling apart. But when I needed trust, I was silenced. When I needed protection, I was made the shield. I no longer carry peace for a family that never considered me part of it. I decline guardianship. I am not the salvation for what they themselves have lost." I printed it, signed it, and returned it by certified mail. Emotional responsibility cannot be demanded from someone who has been systematically rejected. I once took on my share when no one else would speak, but I am no longer in that place. That afternoon, I spent nearly 3 hours clearing every family folder in my email. I deleted all the unanswered messages I had sent, the links they'd shared for fundraising campaigns, the texts that only arrived when they needed someone present. I didn't keep backups. I didn't archive. I clicked delete permanently. That evening, I took down the framed family photo that used to hang in the cabin's living room. It was taken during Christmas of 2016. My parents, me, Delaney, and the 2 kids. Everyone was smiling, but when I looked closely, I noticed I was the only one not facing the camera. My eyes were on my mother, while hers were fixed on Delaney. I placed the photo in a drawer, didn't burn it, didn't hang it back up. Because I don't need to destroy the past. I need to stop living in it. I hadn't planned it from the start. No PR strategy, no signage, no mission statement. Only one simple thought. What if there was a place where women like me didn't have to explain themselves? The unwritten porch began on the front porch of the cabin I once thought was my hiding place. Now it's the first spot where people feel safe enough to sit and breathe deeply. I added a few wooden chairs, repainted the fence, hung a small basket of dried herbs by the door. Mint, lavender, and a bit of sage I'd planted back in April. No sign. No one needed to know what program it was. The first to arrive was a woman named Jody, a friend of Mira's friend. Nearly 50, early gray, carrying an old fabric bag and a look that said she'd been pushed out of too many family dinners. I heard, "No one here asks, 'Have you tried reconciling?'" Jody said as she unwound her scarf. I smiled and boiled more water. The second was Teresa, an elementary school teacher forced to sign her house over to her brother to protect the family's reputation. The third was Joanne, once co-founder of a shop with her husband, who, after their divorce, had the entire in-law community backing him, saying all she had was her name. We didn't hold therapy groups. No mandatory sharing circles. They came, baked banana bread with me, fixed the loose porch steps, wiped winter dust off potted plants I'd neglected. We sat around the wood stove when it got cold. Not many words, just the sound of logs crackling, and occasionally someone would say, "Back then, I thought I was the only one called the quiet shadow. I used to believe that if I sacrificed enough, they'd see me." Stories so similar to mine it hurt, but when spoken aloud by others, they became easier to breathe through, like each woman carried a portion for the next. Mira came one Friday afternoon. She parked beside the stacked firewood, carrying a tin of cinnamon cookies and a small file wrapped in a leather folder. She stayed quiet at first, took the cup of tea I handed her and slowly opened the folder. Inside was a court-sealed document. The Laney's criminal file is officially listed. Charges: exploitation of assets, forgery of notarized documents, and co-conspiracy to defraud an elderly person. I said nothing about Gavin, nothing about my parents. I only looked at the heading, State Visas Delaney Brooks, and felt no ache in my chest. Mira looked at me, gently. "The first hearing's next month. You're not required to testify, but if you want, I can arrange a quiet seat at the back of the courtroom. I think I've said enough." The wind whispered through the pines behind the cabin. In the distance, Finn barked once and settled by the brick step. A small group of women had just arrived. I saw Jody, waving. Mira watched them. "They came because of you, Hollis." "No, they came for themselves. I just left the door open. Because this isn't redemption, not a stage for telling stories. It's a small patch of earth where women once hurt can set down their tea, without being asked why they didn't forgive." At night, we gathered by the stove as usual. Teresa brought apple tart. Joanne was nearly done stitching a cloth with a small phrase. "We're not the leftovers. We're the parts that were hidden." I looked at the thin thread, thinking of all the years I tried to be enough to stay. Then I thought of this porch, where no one needs to be kept, because they already know how to stand. I poured more tea for everyone. My hands weren't cold anymore, not because of the warmth from the tea, but because I'd stopped clinging to what no longer carried warmth. I sat on the old wooden chair on the cabin porch, both hands cupping a cream porcelain mug, chipped at one edge. In front of me, the ground was soaked in late sunlight, soft and golden like end-of-season honey. Far off, the pine forest swayed gently in the wind, the old trees rubbing against each other as if whispering something I didn't need to hear but understood anyway. Some afternoons, I still reach for the drawer that once held my mother's letters, my father's bank slips, photos from trips I was never invited to, but now it's empty. I burned those things one late autumn morning when the yard was blanketed in fallen leaves and Finn curled by the door, breathing steadily like he too knew it was time. I used to think I'd cry when I let go, but I didn't. I simply took a deep breath and watched the smoke rise, light as everything that had weighed me down for over a decade. One woman who once came to the unwritten porch told me, "You don't need to forgive them to find peace. You only need to stop hurting yourself because of them." I remembered that. That evening, I brought my dinner out to the porch. Just stir-fried cauliflower with white beans and a slice of buttered toast. I ate slowly, not in a rush, not checking the clock. Behind me, the stove was still warm. In front of me, the sky was fading into purple, the last light pooling into the dark grains of the wood, like there was nothing left to rush toward. I set the now-cold tea mug on the table and opened the little leather notebook I used to write in whenever something inside me needed to settle. I didn't destroy them. I simply stopped protecting their lie. I closed the notebook and placed it back in the drawer, because in the end, I have nothing left to prove. Not to them, not to anyone. I left, not to fight anyone, but to remain with myself. Have you ever felt like Hollis? Not needing forgiveness, not needing closure, just needing to let go of what no longer belongs to you? Have you ever walked away, not to punish anyone, but to live a life no longer chained to emotional debts you never agreed to carry? If you have, I hope you'll share, because somewhere out there, someone might need to hear your story. Just like Hollis once needed a door left open, even if only by a whisper. And if you're still searching for healing, for courage, or simply for a quiet moment to reflect, follow this channel to stay connected to honest, moving, and deeply human stories about life, family, and the choices we make in the face of pain.